Hey there, I'm Chris. Thanks for watching. I kind of have a long and complicated history with Derrick Henry, making some not so good calls on him from what I see on film. I have missed out on some big NFL production. Just as a running back, he's been very good, and for fantasy, he's been very good. And, I kind of give up. But today's video, I sort of want to break down what I saw, what I continue to see, that makes me think maybe in the end, these giant workloads that the Titans are giving him, maybe they're not the most rational behavior for an NFL team. You know what the big plays look like. Henry is a 247-pound mountain of a human. When he gets going, guys who are 40 pounds lighter can't catch him a lot of the time. Nobody is denying when Henry is up to speed, he's not a complete freak of nature. He also apparently has a tendency to do this against the Texans, but, it's true. The Titans certainly have the threat of a home run if and when Derrick Henry breaks into the clear. But the flip side is a little of what we're glimpsing here, and I'll spend more time breaking down in a little while. He gets stopped near the line a ton, and often in situations that running backs with even a little bit of wiggle would be able to do something, take evasive action, not fall helplessly into a defender's hands. On one hand, really simple player. Really great. Massive with long speed. He's great, right? On the other, hard to believe he deserves the focus Tennessee gives him. And what a dang focus. Derrick Henry, the past 2 years combined, has gotten more work than any running back in the last 10 years. There's only been one running back in the past decade who's even gotten to 600 carries in 2 years. That's Zeke Elliott in 2018-2019. And yeah, we did see that Zeke took a downturn in 2020. And in fact, we'll put a link right here if you want to go watch our Zeke Elliott video, which is maybe a little bit of a warning sign on him. And then otherwise, you got to go back to about a decade ago to find players with this kind of workload. So no question, he's had a lot of workload. And so I'm not trying to make the argument that Derrick Henry is terrible, because he's not terrible. It's pretty obvious. A guy who can do some of those highlights we just saw is not terrible. I guess what I want to show you is what I've seen and why I've made the arguments about Henry that I have in the past, and also ask the question, is this really how a 2021 NFL offense should be behaving? Last year in the red zone against the Steelers, 2 tight ends, tight splits. In Sean McVay's offense, this could be a deep pass, right? But more often here with Tennessee, it's Henry time, and you're going to see a pulling tight end going right, and the line is going to zone block to the left, and the line doesn't really make anything happen going left, but they've stood up the defense, and you can see Derrick Henry try and plant that big left leg, and you can see he's trying to push off to the right. It's got to be a cutback, or it's going to go nowhere, and it's going nowhere. You can see it here. Henry, I think, sees where he might be able to go. He changes direction a little to his right, but mostly he's just changing the angle at which he's running into defenders. There's really no thought at all. It doesn't enter. He doesn't have a 2-foot jump cut. He can't get over to another rush lane. He can't really evade anybody unless he's on the dead run and he chooses a different vector. The fact that he's getting stood up by the defensive tackle who was on the ground should tell you all you need to know about Derrick Henry's evasiveness. And this is everywhere on his film, all the time. He sees when he's got nowhere to go, right? He sees the right side collapsing and everything bottled up. And he wants to go back left here, but all he can really do is is he slapping to get away there and just gets pulled down. Let's watch it again and watch as he plants his right leg. We understand it. He's a huge human being. It's hard to make a good move here at his size. It's like bringing around a battleship. And for sure, a tackler is waiting for the cutback, but that won't even wind up mattering because Henry's quote-unquote cut has basically just slowed him down. He hasn't really changed direction. Not on the go like that, essentially, again, runs into the pile. And losing yardage isn't the running back's fault on every play. At first glance for this one, it doesn't look like it's Henry's fault at all, right? There's no push. He does his best. He's a strong guy, and the Titans want him trying to run over guys. Okay, but let's watch it again from the end zone. It's a power sweep. Everyone's going right. Let's get some tough yards. And isn't that a cutback lane? Isn't that, by NFL standards, a really big hole developing right in front of Derrick Henry? I remember this play. I remembered it when I wanted to make this video. This was a Thursday night game, and I remember commenting about this play on my podcast on that Friday morning. It just seems like Derrick Henry is a bulldozer that cannot turn. If you cut it up hard here, not even hard, just cut it up. I think he sees it. I just don't think it's what his body does. He keeps going straight. He's basically running directly into the mess of bodies again, and he's down. A quick break in the action to thank League Tycoon for sponsoring. If you run a Dynasty League that uses player contracts, that's what League Tycoon was made for. It can get complicated keeping track of all the players and all the contracts in a spreadsheet. With League Tycoon's website and their top-of-the-line mobile app, commissioners will never have to use a spreadsheet. Plus, owners will also find this whole thing so much easier to handle. Playing Dynasty with contracts is awesome. League Tycoon just makes it totally easy. Even if you've never had a league that uses contracts, you'll be up and running in minutes. Plus, League Tycoon has these new Gambit leagues, which is a cool twist on Redraft as well, which is free to play your first one. Basically what I'm saying is, take a second, go to LeagueTycoon.com. Matt is a very regular viewer of this channel. He's one of you. I'm positive that he's seeing this, and he has built something really cool. So make a note of it. Go check it out. LeagueTycoon.com. All right, so before the break, I was trying to show you kind of what had me fooled, why when I saw those Derrick Henry runs, it made me think the other stuff might not continue. And because I saw so much of what I showed you before, that guy, the guy who does the thing that we just saw Derrick Henry do and that he does an awful lot, you know who that guy usually turns out to be? Well, my name's LeGarrette, and I'm here to say I avoid evasive action in every way. The big guys who don't move well laterally, they usually get pigeonholed, and they usually wind up being crazy LeGarrette Blount. You always just kind of wanted to tell LeGarrette, cut. There's a lane. Go ahead and cut. And of course, you know, when he ever found a crease, people would always tell you LeGarrette Blount was fast because he's pretty fast once he got going. Even at the end of his career, this is still long enough ago that the end zone angle is a little grainy. I apologize for that. But yeah, that's LeGarrette. That's him. Breaking into the clear, staggering around, but then breaking into the clear and getting going. So listen, LeGarrette Blount used to be my comparison for Derrick Henry in his rookie year, right? Because of the way they stagger around when bodies are nearby. That's not my comparison anymore, not really. But these stats are interesting. Blount in his career actually spent a little less time from the handoff and then getting back to the line of scrimmage, that time duration, than Derrick Henry, which is probably why on first impression Henry seems as ponderous as Blount did. But let's also be fair, this other number, Henry has more burst than LeGarrette. On average, in his career, he's traveled 0.35 yards before a defender was in 1 yard of him. For Blount, that number was much lower. But in context, I can tell you, overall, like if you're comparing them to across the league and all running backs, these are below average numbers. But no question, sometimes the C's part, man. Henry can look bad for long stretches of games, and then sometimes the C's part, and that's because he's in there so much. That workload is just astronomical. But when you're on the field that much, you're the one who benefits when the C's part. And frankly, you're the one who helps wear the defense down. And then you get the big play that saves your box score and turns 20 carries for 46 yards into 21 carries for 96 yards. Makes it look like a good game. Last year, Henry gained 28% of his yards on 4% of his carries. He is a big play player when he gets in the open field. So I'm not even meaning this as a total criticism. It's just not the way NFL running backs usually excel. Usually the guy who needs 20 carries to quote-unquote really get going never gets the chance to really get going, especially in today's NFL, especially with all the platoon backs. Usually the guy I just described, usually the guy who has Henry's film, turns out to be Brandon Jacobs or like Michael Bush and then gets paired with another quicker running back. Usually, a team sees a back who needs a lot of carries and is mostly pretty inefficient with them and don't commit to him. But this is the big but. And Derrick Henry kind of has a big but. The Titans have committed. They have. I mean, I didn't think they would, and that was the heart of my argument for the past couple of years. But they've committed. You know, personally, these highlights are great. These are great runs. These are the times when he gets going. But personally, I'm not sure they should. I'm not sure they should commit. Personally, I'd be looking for a more dynamic running back to make the offense more dangerous. Not a lead guy, a secondary guy, and pair Derrick Henry with him and have him play a lot more and bring a different element. But it's not what the Titans have done, and that's where my analysis failed, because most teams see what Henry has done and love it, but pair him with someone else. So, for instance, for fantasy, I've just had to swallow my pride and admit I've been wrong on Derrick Henry. For fantasy, I'm still not going to pay his ADP price. In a half PPR, he goes number 3 overall, which is crazy for a guy who doesn't catch it. And you need another world historic running season and another world historic workload, the kind of workload nobody's had in the NFL for like the last 15 years. Everything would have to go right for Derrick Henry to pay you off in a fantasy league if you're going to take him 3rd overall. You would need basically a repeat of a season that was purely historical. It's never a good idea to do that. He has a very small margin for error because he's not going to have any catches. So I don't think he's worth drafting in Fantasy League where you would take him, but for the first time in my prognosticating career, I am making Derrick Henry a first-round pick, and it's a little weird for me because normally the NFL team doesn't commit to the player with the film that we just described, but as I say, the Titans have committed. I don't imagine in 2021 is the time they change their mind, so even though he doesn't look like the prototypically great NFL running back, I give in a little bit this year. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button, write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.